Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Furlander with Ruth Israel Initiative. My deeper understanding and appreciation of spiritual direction started about 5.5 years ago while I was administrating a grant project that brought a holistic approach to soul care for pastors in the U.S. These pastors noticed such a marked difference in the way they grew in depth in their relationship with God through a monthly practice of spiritual direction that when the program was over, most of them found a way to continue funding their own sacred time with a spiritual director. A few of us even found it so valuable, we've begun training to become a spiritual director ourselves. Here's what spiritual directors who have lots of experience are saying about spiritual direction in their own words.
Spiritual direction is an ancient form of pastoral care that focuses on your own relationship with God. And spiritual direction is a space for you to become more discerning as you put together what you know of God and what you know of yourself.
I look at spiritual direction as really just kind of an ongoing conversation between you and me and the Holy Spirit, but mainly you and God. What I would bring to spiritual direction would be more of the posture of an accompanist. It's your journey. I don't dictate which way that goes. That's really between you and the Lord. But what I do is hold some space open for the person I'm sitting with. So in an unhurried, relaxed, non-critiquing, non-judgmental space, that person has the luxury to slow down and just really question God, question themselves, interrogate the reality of their current life, and see how God might be working. So again, that it can be really helpful to have somebody hold that space and give you the opportunity to explore that in an unhurried way.
Now, don't get thrown by words like spiritual or director, because this time with a helpful other isn't always about spiritual things. It usually comes down to the nitty-gritty, earthy things of life and your felt and lived experience of life and relationships, though God is always the central focus that we return to.
Tell me a little bit about your spiritual direction history. How did you come into that?
I like to say first that I think my first experience with spiritual direction, which sounds a little weird but is true, is when I had leukemia. And I feel like I had Jesus as a spiritual director. So, 2.5 years of treatment, the first 6 months of those, out of 6 months I was in the hospital for 3 months. Your blood counts get to nothing. It's hard to breathe. You really can't talk. And in all of that silence, I learned that prayer happens without words and that Jesus comes close. And so I feel like that was my first experience with spiritual direction, even though I wouldn't have named it that. It's a place to be listened to with love and compassion and intention. It is co-discernment. So there's listening and asking questions that help people identify where is God's grace active in their life, because God's always at work, but sometimes we need a friend to help us see where he's at work. And for me, spiritual direction moved away all the clutter in my life.
My name is Bill Elander. My wife Lainey and I have been church planters and pastors for the last 32 years. I didn't know anything about spiritual direction until 2010 when I attended a pastor Sabbath retreat and was able to experience a little bit of spiritual direction, which was really life-giving for me. A year later, I did a sabbatical, a 3-month sabbatical, and I connected with a spiritual director to take me through that sabbatical, and I've been doing spiritual direction ever since then. Well, it's been really life-giving for me to have someone sit with me, listen to my story, journey with me through a lot of different situations, a lot of crazy ups and downs and stuff. And, I've been a disciple of Jesus for over 40 years, but I can say without a doubt that for me, I've grown more, I've developed a deeper relationship with God, and I've had more transformation in my life in the past 8 years since I've been involved with spiritual direction than I had in the 35 years combined up to that point.
That is a definite testimony.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's been a very radical change
Yeah.
in my life.
Desperate need of adjustment with my soul. I have had a lot of opportunities to get hurt and to get burnt out and to just be rough on myself. And so I think I needed some slowing down and some soul care. And so that's how I got involved with spiritual direction. I was introduced to the idea, and it was transformational.
So what is the idea? What is spiritual direction? How do you understand it?
Yeah, it's a slow, gentle, sacred hour where you're meeting with somebody that listens to you and listens to God with you, and where you're paying attention to what's going on with you inside and what God is saying or doing in your life. I think for me, it just is that place where I know someone's on my corner, and they don't judge me when I tell them how I feel about ministry or about God or anything, and they just understand. And they're just walking me through it. They're not counseling or telling me what to do, but they ask really good questions and observations to help me get cleared up of what's really in my heart, and a greater openness to God working in my life and walking through the process.
Oh, that's good.
There have been times where I needed to make a really important decision, and I needed somebody who could be clear with me and let me just share my heart and pray together about what God's doing. It's been really helpful.
What would it be like for somebody to be in spiritual direction with you?
I think I like pictures, and so the picture I get is all of us, individuals. We drive, and we are driving, and we're in the driver's seat, and we're paying attention, hopefully, to the things in front of us, the important things. But as a spiritual director, it's like being a passenger on that journey with you that can help you note the peripheral, the things that are there that you may not notice. So with good listening, good questions, it's a companionship along your walk with Jesus.
Spiritual directors create a place for you to regularly come to for gaining insight through a Holy Spirit-led process of self-discovery. Spiritual directors will pray with you to see what the Father is doing, as Jesus talked about in John 5:19. But we will not only look for what God is doing in a single moment, but over the months and seasons in your life. Discovery comes as you give voice to your own experiences, your joys and sorrows and disappointments, the questions, the longings, the deeper desires, voicing all of this in your conversation with your spiritual director and with God. We call this a conversation of three. Sometimes your spiritual director will ask you questions to draw out what you are holding and what you are sensing in your inner being. Sometimes your spiritual director will punctuate the conversation with silence so that you might better access what you are feeling and thinking and sensing. Your spiritual director will be your companion on your own journey of spiritual formation.
I'm a big fan of spiritual direction. It's been a game changer for me. I didn't even know for the first 50 years of my life that you could have these kinds of conversations with somebody in a safe, compassionate, non-judgmental space. I've seen it impact my ministry, my marriage, how I father my grown children now, how I'm a friend, but mostly just how I discern God in my life and respond to how God is showing up in my life I've seen more fruit in my life and in the lives of others who take the time to have this long, slow conversation. I mean, let's face it, it can be really, really hard as a pastor to find the person that you can talk to about the deep things of your soul without them trying to fix you or correct you.
What are the hoped for outcomes or fruit of spiritual direction? There are many possibilities. Number one on my list is that I hope you will feel seen, heard, and loved by God for who you are as a beloved child, even in the midst of all you are doing to partner with Him in kingdom work. You might become more aware of the sacred in the midst of ordinary events of life. You might explore different ways of prayer that give energy to your devotional life. And you might find yourself becoming more discerning and better prepared to make those crucial decisions as they crop up.
I have found peace and clarity in so many areas of life, particularly in making good decisions, because of the quiet, unhurried space that sitting with a non-judgmental spiritual director who is for my good provides. This ancient spiritual practice is making a comeback in circles of God seekers around the world these days, and I feel it would be such a gift for the resilience of the Jewish believers living in Israel. The days ahead are only going to become more complicated and difficult. This soul care practice, particularly for leaders, offers an opportunity to go deep with God now so that people are ready to stand with Yeshua in those difficult days.
If you want to stay in ministry and have a good soul life, I think it's really important to have somebody you can talk to and pray with and just be. Not somebody that's going to counsel you or tell you what to do, but to listen and ask those kind of questions that will get you to that place of openness to the work of God in your life.
I think as leaders and as pastors, we are giving out all the time. And the people that are neglected the most is ourselves. And I think it's a brave, courageous move to say, I'm going to take care of myself. Because the only thing that we have to give is ourselves, and our whole selves and our healthy selves.
But anybody involved in these, they're going to be awesome. And the best is yet to come for you.
Thanks for watching. I sure hope you find spiritual direction as wonderful and meaningful in your spiritual walk as I have.